So hello and welcome back yet again to the final push for Mr. Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities. We will be finishing this on Thursday night. We only have a couple of chapters left, and I, for one, even though there is a story here, am looking forward to leaving Mr. Dickens behind, at least for now. I don't think we're going to revisit him for a while until I'm ready for something heavy and wordy again, so who knows when that'll actually be. I hope that you enjoyed last night and our guest reader, who will probably be back for tomorrow's chapter. I enjoy having a spare guest reader. It's a lot of fun. I guess, though, if he starts taking over more of them, he won't necessarily be a guest reader. He'll just be the co-reader. I don't know how you'd put that, but I hope that you enjoy. I really enjoy the fact that he reads very clearly and I think very concisely. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. But like I said, we are almost done. We only have just a couple more days. I will be putting up a poll probably tomorrow, so look for it Monday, with the 3 books that we will be picking up on Saturday. And that will be either Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or Heidi. All 3 are books that I have never actually read, but I think all 3 could be very, very fun to read. So I'll put up a poll tomorrow and we'll close it out Saturday morning, Friday night, one of those, and then announce which our next book will be, which we will be starting on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to any of those books. I don't even have one that I'm hoping is going to win because I'm kind of eager for all 3 of them. But before we can do that, we need to move on to Book 3, the final book of A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, with Chapter 12, which is titled Darkness. Sidney Carton paused in the street, not quite decided where to go. "At Tellson's banking house at 9, he said, with a musing face. "Shall I do well in the meantime to show myself? I think so. It is best that these people should know there is such a man as I here. It is a sound precaution, and maybe a necessary preparation, but care, care, care. Let me think it out." Checking his steps, which had begun to tend towards an object, he took a turn or two in the already darkening street and traced the thought in his mind to its possible consequences. His first impression was confirmed. "It is best," he said, finally resolved, "that these people should know there is such a man as I here." And he turned his face towards Saint Antoine. Defarge had described himself that day as the keeper of a wine shop in the Saint Antoine suburb. It was not difficult for one who knew the city well to find his house without asking any questions. Having ascertained its situation, Carton came out of these closer streets again, and then dined at a place of refreshment and fell sound asleep after his dinner. For the first time in many years, he had no strong drink. Since last night he had taken nothing but a little light thin wine, and last night he had dropped the brandy slowly down on Mr. Lorry's hearth, like a man who had done with it. It was as late as 7 o'clock when he awoke refreshed and went out into the streets again. As he passed along towards Saint Antoine, he stopped at a shop window where there was a mirror, and slightly altered the disordered arrangement of his loose cravat, his coat collar, and his wild hair. This done, he went directly to the Defarges and went in. There happened to be no customer in the shop but Jacques Three, of the restless fingers and the croaking voice. This man, who he had seen upon the journey, stood drinking at the little counter in conversation with the Defarges, both man and wife. The Vengeance was assisting in the conversation like a regular member of the establishment. As Carton came in, he took his seat and asked, in very indifferent French, for a small measure of wine. Madame Defarge cast a careless glance at him, then a keener, and then a keener, and then advanced to him herself and asked him what it was he had ordered. He repeated what he had already said. "English?" asked Madame Defarge, inquisitively, raising an eyebrow. After looking at her, as if the sound of even a single French word were slow to express itself to him, he answered, in his former strong foreign accent, "Yes, madame, yes, I am English." Madame Defarge returned to her counter to get the wine, and as he took up a Jacobonian journal and feigned to pore over it, puzzling out its meaning, he heard her say, "I swear to you, like Evermonde." Defarge brought him the wine and told him good evening. "How?" "Good evening." "Oh, good evening, citizen," said Sidney, filling his glass. "Ah, and good wine. I drink to your republic." Defarge went back to the counter and said, "Certainly, a little like." But Madame retorted, "I tell you, a good deal alike." Jacques Three remarked, "He is so much in your mind, see you, madame." And Vengeance added with a laugh, "Yes, my faith, and you are looking forward with so much pleasure to seeing him again tomorrow." Carton followed the lines and the words of his paper with a slow forefinger and a studious face. They were all leaning on their arms on the counter close together, speaking low. After a silence of a few moments, during which they had all looked towards him without disturbing his outward attention from the editor, they resumed their conversation. "It is true, what madame says," said Jacques Three. "Why stop? There is great force in that. Why stop?" "Well, well," said Defarge, "but one must stop somewhere. After all, the question is still where." "At extermination," said Madame. "Magnificent!" croaked Jacques Three, and the Vengeance also highly approved of that. "Extermination is a good doctrine, my wife," said Defarge. "In general, I say nothing against it, but this doctor has suffered much. You have seen him today. You have observed his face when the paper was read." "I have observed his face," said Madame. "Yes, I have observed his face. I have observed his face to be the face not of a true friend of the Republic. Let him take care of his own face." "And you have observed, my wife," said Defarge, "the anguish of his daughter, which must be dreadful anguish to him." "I have observed his daughter," said Madame. "Yes, I have observed his daughter more times than one. I have observed her today, and I have observed her other days. I have observed her in the court, and I have observed her in the street by the prison. Let me but lift my finger." She seemed about to raise it. Sidney's eyes were always on his paper, and then she let it fall with a rattle on the ledge in front of her, as though an axe had dropped. "This citizeness is superb," croaked Jacques Three. "She is an angel," said the Vengeance, embracing her. As to these, said Madame, addressing her husband, if it depended on thee, which happily it does not, thou would rescue the man even now. No, said Defarge, not if to lift this glass would do it. But I would leave the matter there. I say we stop there. See you then, Jacques, said Madame Defarge. And see you too, my little Vengeance, see you both, and listen. For other crimes, as tyrants and oppressors, I have this race a long time on my register, doomed to extermination. Ask my husband if it is not so. It is so, said Defarge, without being asked. In the beginning of the great days, when the Bastille falls, he finds this paper of today, and he brings it home, and in the middle of the night, when this place is clear and shut, we read it here on this spot by the light of this lamp. Ask him if that's not what happened. It is so. That night, I tell him, when the paper is read through, and the lamp is burnt out, and the day is gleaming above these shutters between those iron bars, that I now have a secret to communicate. Is that not so? It is, said Defarge. I tell him that secret. I smite my bosom with these two hands as I smite it now, and I tell him, Defarge, I was brought up among the fishermen of the seashore, and that peasant family so injured by the two Evermond brothers, as that Bastille paper describes, is my family. Defarge, that sister of the mortally wounded boy on the ground, was my sister, and that husband was my sister's husband, and that unborn child was their child. That brother was my brother, that father my father, those dead are my dead, and that summons to answer for these things comes to me. Ask him if that was not so. It is so, said Defarge. Then you tell the wind and fire where to stop, said Madame, but don't you tell me. All of her hearers derived a horrible enjoyment from the deadly nature of her wrath. Sidney could feel how pale she had gone without seeing her, and her listeners highly commended it. Defarge, a weak minority, said a few words for the memory of the compassionate wife of the Marquis, but only elicited from his own wife a repetition of her last reply. Tell the wind and fire where to stop, not me. Customers entered, and the group was broken up. The English customer paid for what he had, perplexedly counted his change, and asked as a stranger to be directed towards the National Palace. Madame Defarge took him to the door, and put her arm on his in pointing out the road. Sidney was not without his reflections then, that it might be a good deed to seize that arm, lift it, and strike it under sharp and deep, but he went his way, and was soon swallowed up in the shadow of the prison wall. At the appointed hour, he emerged from it to present himself in Mr. Lorry's room again, where he found the old gentleman walking to and fro in restless anxiety. He said that he had been with Lucy until just now, and had only left her for a few minutes to come and keep this appointment. Her father had not been seen since he had quit the banking house towards 4 o'clock. Lucy had some faint hopes that his meditation might yet save Charles, but they were slight. The doctor had been more than 5 hours gone. Where could he be? Mr. Lorry waited until 10, but Dr. Manette not returning, and he being unwilling to leave Lucy any longer, it was arranged that he should go back to her and come to the banking house again at midnight. In the meanwhile, Sidney would wait alone by the fire for the doctor. He waited and waited, and the clock struck 12, but Dr. Manette did not come back. Mr. Lorry returned and found no tidings of him, and brought none of his own. Where could he be? They were discussing this question, and were almost building up some weak structure of hope on his prolonged absence, when they heard him out on the stairs. The minute he entered the room, it was plain. All was lost. Whether he had really been to anyone, or whether he had been all that time traversing the streets, was never known. As he stood staring at them, they asked him no questions, for his face told them everything. "I cannot find it," he said, "and I must have it. Where is it?" His head and throat were bare, and as he spoke, with a helpless look straying all around, he took his coat off and let it drop to the floor. "Where is my bench? I have been looking everywhere for my bench, and I can't find it. What have they done with my work? Time presses. I must finish these shoes." They looked at each other, and their hearts died within them. "Come," he said, in a whimpering, miserable way. "Let me get to work. Give me my work." Getting no answer, he tore his hair and beat his feet upon the ground like a distracted child. "Don't torture a poor forlorn wretch," he said. "Give me my work. What is to become of us if the shoes are not done tonight?" Lost. It was all utterly lost. It was so clearly beyond hope to reason with him, or try to restore him, that, as if by agreement, they each put a hand upon his shoulder and soothed him to sit before the fire, with a promise that he should have his work soon. He sank into the chair, and he brooded over the embers and shed tears, as if all that had happened since the garret time was just a momentary fancy or dream. Mr. Lorry saw him shrink into the exact figure that Defarge had had in his keeping. Affected and impressed with terror, as they both were by the spectacle of ruin, it was not a time to yield to those emotions. His lonely daughter, bereft of her final hope, appealed to them both too strongly. Again, as if by agreement, they looked at one another with the meaning in their faces, but Carton was the first to speak. "The last chance is gone. It was not much. Yes, he had better be taken to her, but before you go, will you for a moment steadily attend to me? Don't ask me why I make the stipulations I am going to make, and extract the promise I am going to exact from you. I have a good reason." "I don't doubt you," said Mr. Lorry. "Speak on." The figure in the chair between them was all the time monotonously rocking to and fro and moaning. They spoke in such a tone as they would have used if they had been watching by a sick bed. Carton stooped to pick up the coat, which lay almost entangling his feet, and as he did, a small case in which the doctor was accustomed to carry his list of daily duties fell on the floor. Carton picked it up, and there was a folded paper in it. "We should look at this," he said, and Mr. Lorry nodded consent. He opened it and said, "Oh, thank God! What is it?" A moment. Let me speak of it in its place. First," Sidney put his hand into his coat and took another paper for it, "that is the certificate which enables me to pass out of this city. Look at it. You see, Sidney Carton, an Englishman." Mr. Lorry held it open in his hand. "Keep it for me until tomorrow. I shall see him tomorrow, you remember, and I had better not take it into the prison." "Why not?" "I don't know. I prefer not to do so. Now, take this paper that Dr. Manette has carried about him. It is a similar certificate, enabling him and his daughter and her child at any time to pass the barrier in the frontier. You see? Yes. Perhaps he obtained it as his last utmost precaution against evil yesterday. When is it dated? But no matter. Don't stay to look. Put it up carefully with mine and your own. Now observe. I never doubted until within this hour or two that he had or could have had such a paper. It is good until it is revoked, but it may soon be revoked, and I have reason to think it will. Are they in danger? Said Mr. Lorry. They are in great danger. They are in danger of denunciation by Madame Defarge. I heard it from her own lips. I have overheard words of that woman's tonight, which have presented their danger to me in strong colors. I have lost no time, and since then I have seen the spy. He confirms me. He knows that a wood sawyer, living by the prison wall, is under the control of the Defarges, and has been rehearsed by Madame into his having seen her. He never mentioned Lucy's name out loud, making signs and signals to the prisoners. It is easy to foresee that the pretense will be the common one, a prison plot, and it will involve her life, and perhaps her child's, and perhaps even her father's, for both have been seen with her at that place. Don't look at me so terrified. You will save them all. Heavens grant I may, Carton, but how? I will tell you how. It will depend on you, and it could depend on no better man. This new denunciation will certainly not take place until after tomorrow, probably not until 2 or 3 days after, and possibly even a week. You know it is a capital crime to mourn for or to sympathize with a victim of the guillotine. She and her father would unquestionably be guilty of this crime, and this woman, Defarge, would wait, wanting to add that strength to her case and make herself doubly sure. Do you follow me? I follow you so attentively and with so much confidence in what you say that for the moment I lose sight. He touched the back of the doctor's chair. I lose sight even of this. You have money, said Carton, and can buy the means of traveling to the sea-coast as quickly as the journey can be made. Your preparations have been completed for days now, have they not, to return to England? Early tomorrow. Have your horses ready, so they may be starting at 2 in the afternoon. It shall be done. Sidney's manner was so fervent and inspiring that Mr. Lorry caught the flame and seemed as quick as a youth. You are a noble heart, said Sidney. Did I say we could depend upon no better man? Tell her tonight what you know of her danger involving her child and her father. Dwell upon that, for she would try to lay her own fair head next to her husband's with great cheer. Sidney faltered for a moment, then went on. For the sake of her child and her father, press upon her the necessity of leaving Paris with them and you at that hour. Tell her it was her husband's last arrangement. Tell her that more depends upon it than she dare hope or believe. You think that her father, even in this sad state, will submit himself to her, don't you? I am sure she will. I thought so. Quietly and steadily have all of these arrangements made in the courtyard here, even to taking of your own seat in the carriage. The moment I come to you, take me in and drive away. I understand, said Mr. Lorry. I wait for you. Under all circumstances? You have my certificate in your hand, with the rest, you know, and that will reserve my place. Wait for nothing but to have my place occupied, and then for England." "Why then," said Mr. Lorry, grasping his eager but so firm, steady hand, "why, it does not all depend upon one old man. I will have a young ardent man at my side." "With the hope of heaven, you will." "Promise me," said Sidney, "that nothing will influence you to alter the course on which we now stand pledged to each other." "I swear it, Carton." "Remember these words tomorrow. Change the course or delay it for any reason, and no life can possibly be saved, and many will be sacrificed." I will remember. I hope I can do my part faithfully," said Mr. Lorry. "And I hope I can do mine. Now, goodbye." Though Sidney said it with a grave smile of earnestness, and though he even put the old man's hand to his lips, he did not part from him then. He helped him so far to arouse the rocking figure before the dying fire, and to get a cloak and a hat put upon it, and to tempt it forth to find where the bench and work table were hidden, that he still moaningly besought to have. Sidney walked on the other side of the doctor, and he protected the courtyard of the house where the afflicted heart, so happy in the memorable time when he had revealed his own desolate heart to it, and he watched the awful night. Sidney entered the courtyard and remained there for a few moments, then alone, looking up at the light in the window of her room. Before he went away, he breathed a blessing towards it and a farewell. And that is the end of chapter 12, where it sounds like Sidney Carton has a plan. And I think I remember what his plan is. And again, the only thing that is going through my mind is the music of Les Miserables. I really do have to wonder if Les Mis was written about the same time as this book. I would look it up, but I don't wonder that much. So it's just one of those stray thoughts, because this book reminds me a lot of Les Miserables. I actually read that book back when I was a senior in high school and was massively obsessed with the musical Les Mis. The book was a slog, but still very good. I wonder if I would find it as much of a slog as I'm finding Dickens. Although that chapter, I must say, I feel like was a much better one. It felt much more coherent and much less wordy than some of the others. So let me know how you enjoyed that one. Please do hit the thumbs up, and I will see you tomorrow or the next day, depending on if I get my son to read the next chapter. Anyway, thank you, and I will see you later.